Along the journey, there are certain things you have to let go. There were certain people I had to let go. There were certain things. There were certain things about myself that I had to let go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pushing Your Peers podcast. I'm your host, Bourne, and today we're joined by Timothy Smith, a Bahamian filmmaker, community activist, and all-around inspiration. Timothy is on a mission to connect all of us to storytelling and community building. He's all about celebrating Caribbean culture and empowering the next generation to make a difference. Through his organizations like Kolomo Weju Stories, Timothy's making waves with creative projects that tackle social issues and preserve our history. And guess what? Today, he's here to talk to us about two crucial P's: perseverance and purpose. So let's get ready to push some P's. Timothy, one of the things I talk about in my book is purpose being something that is in abundance, meaning, as we grow, so does our purpose. And I just want you to share with me your experience with purpose. How do you define it, and how has it influenced your journey? Because you're a person that wears a lot of hats. So tell me, how has purpose impacted you, and also define it?
Purpose is what keeps me focused. It really helps, like, keep the sanity in my head of like all the things that I want to do. It helps me stay on a particular track. In terms of purpose, like purpose of, like I said, I believe people are the greatest resource in this world. And, this is something that, me and you have spoke about over Twitter. It's like the only people who are going to come and clean up our countries and do them justice, and I would say on a very longevity scale, is us, the people. Because we have, call it patriotism, call it whatever that you want, but we are the ones who are going to see this through. And, that is exactly what I view purpose as: seeing it through, see these things through. Because, when we look at, uh, national heroes, and when you look at how old they were like 20, 21, 22, 23. And it really makes you look at us in our adult years, because, I'm in my earlier half of my 30s. It's like, wow, like I am technically a patriarch, within my own culture, amongst my own family. So what am I contributing towards this culture of mine, and, on a region-wide scale, that, the future generations are going to benefit from? We have to sow these seeds now in order for the next generation, or, sometimes even in our elderly stages, what will we reap from those decisions that we made? And, I also see, especially coming from a family where we have like heavy migration history, I also saw the gaps in generational wealth, generational purpose. That, there's one side of the family where they're focused about, what they've accumulated here in South Florida. And then, but then what are we maintaining with where our roots are, where our foundation is? And it also showed me what I do not desire. Because, and, I guess, this contributes to the brain drain conversation about,
Definite.
if our people if our people are so scattered across the world building up other nations, because, where you live, that's where your life is.
Mm.
If you live in South Florida, that's where your life is. And that is where you are constantly accumulating. That is where 90% of your time goes. And yes, the 10% is like, when you come back home for a festive holiday, or to see family members, or, the typical Bahamian
Yeah.
thing, or just when somebody died or somebody get
Yup.
married. And that really showed me the lifestyle I do not want. Like, I am a person where home is such an inspiration for me that I want to give it a level of devotion and commitment to where, to give back, and then to give back in such a fullness way of, I want to see all multiple generations benefit from my decisions, not just the future. Because I would like to, for my parents to benefit from the decisions that I made for them, and other elderly people, younger generations, teenagers, because I do feel like we all play a purpose in this circle of life that we call. So purpose really just fuels my mission. It helps me keep going at the end of the day to really see where is this going and how it's on, like like you mentioned before, how is it transforming?
Right.
How is it manifesting in this material world? Because they say, like, if your head is too much in the clouds, then that means you're no earthly good.
Mm.
But then you also need a good spirit. You need something to really keep you going. So it fuels my spirit, but then it also helps me to bring things from a very intellectual world in my mind and bring it something into reality that people could benefit from.
Now, Timothy, you're someone that's involved a lot in storytelling. How does your narrative
Yes.
shift or shape people's purpose? The narratives that you tell as a storyteller.
I want people to understand that there is power in our culture. And I had a good friend. I had a good friend when we had a conversation about this, and especially, I feel like you could definitely resonate with this type of background as well. Like, growing up in the church, we kind of feel like everything spiritual is always tied to the church, but like, no, there are spirits all around us.
Definite.
And I feel people, as a particular culture, especially, a melting pot of cultures that literally became one people. There's so much spirituality in our culture. And I feel that, we have to make cultural decisions to elevate that culture, elevate our spirituality in this. So I tell people, like, through my storytelling aspects, I want them to feel empowered by who they are as people. Um, One thing for me that is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like, you ever realize when, members of the diaspora or like people of Caribbean heritage, whenever they win something international, when they get to that trophy on the speech, they always have to say, "I come from a small island." And I'm a big person on vocabulary because words have meaning. They
Yes.
have very, very conjuring type skills. And I feel like whenever we have to say small, I feel that means that's how we view ourselves.
Mm.
We view ourselves as small, minuscule in the face of this vast earth. But like, no, there are multiple cultures around this earth. Small, big, medium, large, gigantic. Your footprint is your footprint. And you have ways of just expanding past your limitations. Because you got to realize, we view ourselves as so small. And And I feel like, why do we always feel the need to remind the world of, like, we came from a small place? Like, yes, we come from a small place geographically, but that does not deter what we are capable of.
Profound.
As like, like, for example, like the Chinese, they treat they label their people as intellectual property. That means, and it sounds very robotic, of course, but then, like, look at the true meaning of intellectual property. That means, like, each person is capable of something so vast. Because I remember even going to FIU, all the Chinese students, like, they were always so focused. Like, nothing could, like, there was no time for fun. There was no time for any other things. It was about learning something here and going back home and implementing it into their culture.
I saw that. I saw that too.
Basically.
Yeah, with my school.
And it goes to really show you, like, yes, all of them, they value their place in their culture of, like, what am I going to do homebound. And I kind of feel like, as a people, as a region where we suffer for so much migration, that imagine just, I mean, yes, of course, geographically we can't fit the whole diaspora because our population size has grown so vast. But just imagine where, you know what we could really contribute to our homes if that intellectual property were to return, but then also build. Because we need industries. We need different industries We need to like divest from just this tourism narrative of like, and this is all that we could produce. But then there's so much more that we need. There's so much in terms of like social services, even the creative sector. Like, that is something that, it's the running joke of like, especially, with the Bob Marley movie and just other films, people have said it like, why don't you hire Caribbean actors? But then, because most of the time they've always chosen like members of the diaspora, like, oh yes, they're of Caribbean blood, but then, they were born and raised in the UK their entire life.
You
Like, yes, it's a touchy situation, but it goes back to what I'm saying. Like, if we have more home ground built organizations, it would also promote people to actually stay and to build, which, fixes generational gaps in our history, in our families, and you build a much more healthier legacy.
Timothy, you touched on something. You said, we often talk about coming from a small place. And maybe this gives us the idea that we can accomplish big things. Is that what you're aiming towards, or leaning towards when you say that? Just for clarity.
I feel like we don't have to use those words. I feel like we should have much more faith in ourselves. And that's where it goes back to what I said. I want us to have so much faith in our culture and as people of this culture that we don't have to label ourselves as that whenever we reach an accomplishment. Like we accomplish that is because of that's who we are. We are greatness. We are greatness. We have ingenuity. Even when you look at some of the things that we accomplished, in colonial times, we were pioneers of things. Look how we were able to take plants and weave it into straw, or our cooking methods about certain things to be able to survive in a particular climate. It's because that is human ingenuity. So, like, yes, you are a Caribbean person, but you have human ingenuity. So, remove small from your vocabulary.
Powerful. And I said that to say, maybe we should call ourselves the Great Caribbean, or we come from a great country as opposed to small, because maybe that would project a greater purpose in all of us.
Yes.
Love
Yes, I firmly believe
I
that.
love that. Timothy, given your focus on youth empowerment, how do you believe helping young people discover their purpose contributes to their well being and also feeling connected to the community?
Um, because that working with kids, especially my first time working with kids was when I went to Freeport, Grand Bahama, and we mentored kids about things about higher education and adult life, like money, saving, dating, and it just opened up my eyes to like most people don't get these talks at home.
Right.
Most of the time, home is a very structured narrative, and then everything else is just like a waste of time. But then you're sending children to grow up in this vast world, especially things come faster now because everybody has access to the internet through your phones, through your iPads, so they are learning things without even your knowledge. So it's like, well, how do we help them make the better decisions? Because I wish certain people would have spoke to me about certain things as I grew up as an adult. So I said to myself, well, be that adult for somebody else. Because I realized I am the adult. When those children walked up into me and they called me Mr. Smith, I turned around to see if my father was around, and I was like, no, they're talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, they're literally talking to me, like I'm the one that they are addressing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a powerful moment for me. It was just like it really inspired me to really take this even further. Like even after Hurricane Dorian happened, like I was able to reach out to a few of them to say like, hey, I hope you and your families are well, you're doing well, and then they say thank you so much for like reaching out and things of that nature. And it was just such a heartfelt moment for me to say like I want to continue this.
Yeah.
So even when I venture to other places, like other Caribbean countries, to see children from a culture outside of my own, it also increases my awareness and just overall appreciation of your you're reaching out to multiple
Mm,
souls, multiple people, multiple minds, and this helps them evolve. This helps them evolve. Like if you're able to give them something to work with, they're able to cultivate it at a younger age.
that's
So if they are given this now, imagine as they grow with it and refine it, who will they become?
definite. And so much is going on with young people nowadays. I mean, they need that. They need someone pouring into them and giving them a sense of direction and purpose. With social media's
Hmm.
got these children minds open up to everything. So they need a shepherd to guide them, especially with what's happening in today's society with young men in particular, us. We need that. We need someone to change that narrative. And I remember growing up, I resonate with filmmakers so much because I believe we have so much power in our hands when we create these films. One of the movies that was really inspiring to me as a child was Forrest Gump. Believe it or not, and I love Forrest Gump because here's this social outcast guy who's limitless within his capacity, but he never allows society to weigh him down. He always keeps pushing. I didn't see Forrest Gump depressed in none of those scenes. Forrest always had the positive mindset despite his limitations, perceived limitations, because he went on to do great things in everything he did, which is fantastic. And I resonated with that so much because I viewed myself kind of like the social outcast, So seeing that someone like Forrest could have a sense of purpose made me believe that, even in not being socially accepted, I can still serve a greater purpose in this world. And that's the power that we have when we create these storylines.
Oh, that's a very interesting. But it's been a while since I seen Forrest Gump.
But Timothy, there's a segment of our show, this show now, where you get to push your P. And your P can be any word that begins with P that you believe has positively impacted your life. And I'll give you an opportunity now to bring that to the forefront.
One that it's like a thorn in my side each day is perseverance.
Mm,
Perseverance. Um, but then also when I say perseverance, I also mean like look at perseverance full circle. Yes, we have to see things through, but then we also need the fluidity of understanding that there are certain things we have to let go. It's a it works together simultaneously, like light and dark, Optimus and Megatron. Like you need to understand both sides, like see things through, but then also know when to let go. Because I believe is that fluidity of perseverance that has really pushed. It's pushing my
so
purpose to continue
you
on.
say something. You say perseverance is letting go. Is that where you're coming with? Like you have to let go of what? What are we letting go of when we are persevering through something?
Well, I would say for this, whenever like I, plan things, like whenever I plan like future trips or things of that nature, perseverance has taught me to, in terms of the letting go side of, to be wise. Like there's certain people that I realize that I work with that kind of hindered certain things. So it has taught me to like, all right, be wise of who I tell my ideas to, who I involve in my circle, because they, for I love them to death, but like, there are certain times when I would tell my parents certain things about my inspirations that they would just shoot it down with a missile, and especially when we're expressing like very close things to our hearts,
Definitely.
it
Yeah.
hurts. It hurts. The human side takes over, and then next thing you know, you're depressed. You're depressed, and you're not performing, you're not doing anything, and next thing you know, you're not living on your purpose. So perseverance has taught me to be fluid, to like, yes, have a particular goal in mind, but be fluid enough that you know that by practicing multiple things, you're able to reach there. So yes, along the journey, there are certain things you have to let go. There were certain people I had to let go.
Got you.
There were certain things. There were certain things about myself that I had to let go, because there were certain things within my own internal character or mindset at the time being of age and certain things that was holding me back. So I had to realize I had to grow. So I had to let that go in order for more space to take in order to expand my reach, my awareness, my insight, my skills.
Timothy, you said something powerful. You describe perseverance as shedding. You know, it's like how you're describing it is like the rocket when it takes off, and in order for it to break through the atmosphere, it has to drop that weight. I've never
Hmm.
heard
It has to
perseverance
jettison.
described that way. From when you say perseverance, I usually think of enduring it until the end. But your view of it, and I love it, is that it's something that requires us to share that weight as we are busting through the atmosphere. And I find that to be
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah, because just like how you said, with a rocket ship, it has to reach the space. Space is the goal. But in order for it to reach that, you have to shed off your weight. You have to jettison all that extra weight. The boosters that are no longer have fuel in it is just heavy metal that is going to drag you back down to earth and crash. So, like, whenever you're trying to elevate, there's just certain things that you just have to let go of. For example, like in terms of, this is something that is very heavy within our culture, like domestic violence. Domestic violence, rape culture, and so many things. Like there's so many things that are embedded in our culture because naturally we come from a very patriarchal but also colonial society where there was things that in the olden days that have molded and manifested into very perverse things. Now, if we're able to heal as a society, as a community, there's just certain things that we have to put under a microscope, really truly analyze it. That if we want a more thriving future, we have to analyze our history. We have to know our history, analyze it, and we also have to refine it. And a refining process is like, when you're purifying metal, you have to get the impurities out. So, yeah, like I said, persevere to see things through, but know what needs to be let go of in order for you to reach a much more healthier state.
You know, you mentioned something about community healing. I'm a huge advocate of therapy and personal development. You know, what do we need to do as a community to jumpstart this healing process collectively?
I do feel like therapy should be free. I think it should be free. I feel therapists should be paid. They should be government officials. They should be paid government officials. Look for example, bro. Like we have governor generals. We have like members of tourism who don't even live in the country anymore. They live in other places just to promote things, just to handle foreign affairs and all that stuff. But they get a check just for not being there. So I feel like, on a social service scale, like, yes, therapy should be free. People should have a community space where they're able to unpack certain things, especially like we need more therapists of our actual culture. And, when I started my therapy journey, that's one thing I was very strict about, because like, yes, I was at the States at the time, but there's like, oh, but why don't you just get a black therapist? I was like, yes, a black therapist would be helpful, but a Bahamian therapist
Right.
will be spot on because there'll be things that I could tell a person that I don't have to overly explain. The person just understands due to cultural and community upbringing. So, I mean, luckily I was able to find one, and she has been the best. I'm able to tell her things, and she just catches on quick. And also it just it is such a natural healing factor, and this is a very good person that is pinnacle to my life. However, I do feel like on a community scale, yes, resources need to be put into this for community healing because, we're just telling people to just go on, to go on and go on and go on. And these wounds, they are festering. These spiritual wounds are festering.
Definitely.
There are so many people, there are so many people who are just dying at a younger age now due to generations of things that we have just not that we've continued to sweep under the rug.
Yeah, that we are using the wrong coping mechanisms to cope with. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and, especially in our culture, like most of us, we retreat to sex and alcohol. And, yes, these, I wouldn't say vices, like these experiences, they could be healthy. They could be healthy experiences because, we all enjoy a good fete every once in a while. And, we all enjoy the intimacy with another person. But sometimes they could be so disastrous if not within coming from the right mindset and the right mindset and the right just overall atmosphere. I would say, like if we go to it for the wrong things, it could turn into something that is very disastrous to our health.
One of the things that I spoke about in my book was healing from traumas. And what I spoke about, and one of the pieces I talked about is the parental relationship, our parents, how that impacts our state. And, I talk up, and I love how you describe perseverance, because you describe it as shedding so that you can elevate. And sometimes you have to go back to those, revisit those traumas, and make peace with that, accept that,
Mhm.
forgive that, in order to elevate our states of well-being and happiness. And so I just love where this conversation went to, because it all ties in. Everything is
Yes, it
connected,
does.
and I love the definition of perseverance. I can't wait to post it on social media. Just yeah, I really really love the way you described it. And Timothy, you're 16 years old right now. 16-year-old you. You have no idea, no sense of direction. And what advice would you give yourself, 16-year old, about purpose and discovering it?
Um, if I was 16-year-old, I had to think about where was I. I mean, of course, high school, but what was I doing? I would definitely tell 16-year-old me to work on my self-esteem. I
Mm.
realized a lot of my younger years, I was just basically the collateral damage from multiple people's decisions. Because I was a people pleaser. To throw in another P, I was a definite people pleaser. I I was a definite people pleaser because I felt like, especially growing up or how I was raised to serve. As a man, you got to do this. As a boy, you have to do this. It's like, and that's all I ever was taught, and it really manifested in a very not so healthy way, where like I was a people pleaser to the point where I was depleting myself. I was making sure everybody else was good, but I left my own self hanging, and that self betrayal. Like if I'm of no good, how can I even continue on in this life? So I would definitely tell my younger self like to really work on your self-esteem, to really like figure out who you are so that you don't so that people pleasing won't destroy you.
I love that, man. Timothy, you have a company, or what's the name of your company?
Well, I have two organizations right now. The first one, which is where we met, Kolomo Weju Stories. Kolomo Weju is actually is one of the indigenous languages of the Caribbean, and it means new beginnings or new dawn.
Can you say that?
So
Kolomo Wehu?
yeah, Kolomo Weju.
Wehu,
It means
Kolomo Wehu.
yeah, Weju, Weju.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Wehu.
means yeah, so it means new beginnings. Because I'm a very heavy person on anime, and one of the biggest things about anime is character development. So, and that's how I view us people in the region. Like, who we are season one is not who we're going to be in season five.
Mm.
So basically, Kolomo Weyu Stories is basically documentation of our people as multiple chapters are just going and going and going and going and going. Because to be honest, I even want to create something that outlives me. So like, if this is, if I find a successor and I pass it on, continue these stories, continue to document our history. This is something that I learned from a friend from St. Kitts, where he was basically telling us, like, yes, the early parts of our history were told by people over us, outsiders.
Mm.
So we have to really take responsibility of the documentation of our history. And I'm not just saying history of, oh, this happened in that such and such a time. Like, I do more than just history. I also document social events, social things. My last trip to Trinidad, I did a few interviews with R&B artists because the R&B scene in Trinidad is actually something that is really going. And before I left, I just said thank you for allowing me to tell your story. And these were people. There's like when I first interviewed them, when I sent them an email, there's like, you want to interview me? And it's like, and I love just the factor of highlighting everyday people because everybody has a story to tell. Everybody. Most of the
Everybody.
time in our most of the time in our culture, we kind of try to linger around. I would say the word. I wouldn't say celebrities. I would say trailblazers. We always like to highlight people that you always see in the limelight of things. But I was like, no, everybody has a story, and like 'cause that's something that I always realized growing up. Like everybody that you like when you're walking down the street, everybody has something to tell you. They have something to tell you. They have knowledge. Like, especially as of now, as filmmakers, storytellers, we need to interview as much old people as possible.
I agree.
There's
I
so much stuff that there's so much stuff that they know that could be so influential. But then, sometimes in their minds they feel like it's very minuscule, or they feel like people as of now, the young people of now, we just don't care about those things. I was like, no. For example, my aunt has all the family cookbook recipes, and I said, tell me everything. Tell me everything because I want to know. I want to know it all. This is
Hmm.
something that I would like to pass down, not to just like children when I start a family, but to my cousins, to
Definite.
my niece, and my nephew. These are things that I just want to instill into the next generation.
Timothy, I talked about purpose being in abundance, but what's the overall purpose of what you're doing? Like, what's your end game?
This is something that I heard this from one of like he was a like I would say he was a mentor to me. He said to me, he's from Dominica. He said, "I'm not here to create any enemies. I'm just here to raise the Caribbean standard." And I took that. I wrote it on a sticky note, and that has also like evolved in my mind. I want to just build a thriving future for us, or contribute to that. I would say. Because yes, some of these things I might not be alive to even see, but I want to know the fact that I contributed something to this, and that is peace. That brings me peace. That brings me purpose, and that brings me peace to know that I contributed something to this.
And as filmmakers, your work will definitely outlive you. And you probably won't be alive to see the impact that it has, but it's gonna have a significant impact. Even watching your story, I can't wait till I see you post on social media, because it's always something with substance and something that you can take a wealth of knowledge and wisdom from. And I can see the intention of what you're working to achieve. So I want to commend you for it, and I want to also encourage you and give you your flowers, Timothy. Continue doing what you do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I usually end the show off with my traditional off the wall question. And given that you're someone who's in the film industry, I think this question is well fitting for what you do. If you could be a character from a book, a movie, or even a TV show, who would you be and why?
I would definitely be Itachi Uchiha. Itachi Uchiha from Naruto.
Okay. I
Um,
don't, go ahead. Why?
Tachi was a person that was filled with such mystery, but he had such great foresight about the future of humanity and how we do things. But he also was able to learn from his mistakes. Within his last few years, he understood that he tried to take on the world by himself and that he failed. He realized that was his failure. So he recognized that he needed love. He needed the love of friendships, the love of people that he could really truly be close to. Because like the good quote says, if you want to get there, go by yourself. But if you want to go further, go with others. So, and that also goes back into what I say about community. Community, we need each other. But then we also have to be wise about who we work with. So, like, to go back, to the perseverance as well, like how they all connect with one another. It's like a web. You're gonna just get caught up in all the threads, like
Definitely.
walking into a spider web because they're all connected together. All of these things, they are unavoidable. They are so unavoidable. So I would definitely say him, and because he had a lot of wisdom, about life. And I wouldn't say, like, yes, I'm still growing in my wisdom as a person because I'm only 35 years old, but it's just the simple fact that I'm open to learning, and what I've learned, I will share it. I don't. I feel like there's a lot of people in our culture, like, especially due to everybody's trying to gain the dollar, that we
Yep.
kind of gatekeep. We gatekeep a lot of things, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that is very shameful behavior because why would you hinder good from somebody? why
Indeed.
would why why would you hinder good from somebody? Like, even for myself, like, I build a database of people from across the region and what they do, and you're a part of that as well. So that way, like, let's just say if I ever entered a room and somebody said, like, hey, I need a Turks and Caicos producer, and I was like, okay, yes, I know somebody. I know Leonardo. This is his contact, this is his email, this is his page. And it even goes into makeup artists, dancers, models, all of these things, because, like I said, it all plays into a role of elevating our people. You need to speak about your people. You need to
I love
speak about them. You need to just, become, like I said, build a very, very intense network, like the Spider Verse. Like, you see how there was millions and millions of Spider Men, Spider Women.
it.
It was
Mm-hmm.
just, but then they were all connected together for a singular purpose, and and that's how I view us. Like, we all play a role into this, so let's live out our role. And yes, that's what I would say.
Timothy, I just want to thank you for being a part of the Pushing Your P experience. You've dropped so many gems, so many gems. And I just want to thank you for sharing your story. And I hope to see you back on the show because I feel like you still have a lot to talk about and unpack.
Hey, just let me know if you want me to come back. Just let me know. You know I am. And then
Appreciate you.
and I would also say this, man. I'm looking forward to meeting you whenever I make it down to the South.
For sure, bro.
Because especially the running jokes and running jokes between the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. We we definitely need more experience with each other,
For
because
sure.
I tell people all the time, like, bro, like, we share not only a history with these people but a bloodline as well.
Yeah, we
Like,
do.
we have so many people who have, like, there's too much for us to really just ignore due to the political, and you got to call it for what it is. It's the
Yeah, yeah.
politics.
Yeah,
It's the
for sure.
politics and the history of the situation, but we are one people, and we have to start acting like it. So, whenever I get some Turks money because I seen y'all grocery prices,
It's
good Lord,
crazy. It
I
really
I,
is.
I would I would definitely be down there soon.
But we need to do a project together that is coming. So, yeah, I see it in the future for sure.
Of course.
Timothy, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. I'll see you on the next episode of Pushing Your Peace.